Welcome to the Master Dealmakers Secrets Podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
Welcome to Master Dealmakers Secrets. I'm John Blake. This is episode 61, and today I am so excited to be bringing Ali Cudby into the studio to talk to you. We're going to be talking about customer retention, amongst a number of other things. And I think this is a particularly powerful subject for what's going on in the world right now, as well as really what's going on in the world at any time. Retaining your customers is crucial. Ali is an expert on that. And so really excited to have her on the show to talk about that. But first, if you have got leads in your pipeline and you want to convert more of those leads into sales, head over to johnblakeaudio.com and get your free audio training where I show you the exact strategy that you can use to double your sales with your existing leads. So this is the exact same strategy that I work with my high ticket clients on. It works consistently. Once you install it in your business, it will work and deliver consistent results. So head over to johnblakeaudio.com, download the audio training, and you'll also get the PDF guide that has the exact email templates and phone scripts. And this is going to be super valuable and really deliver you some great results once you put it into use. So head over to johnblakeaudio.com and grab that today. And yeah, let me know how you go with it. Cheers. Okay, so we have got Ali Cudby with us. I'm so excited. A little bit about Ali before we get cracking. She started her career working in Hollywood, making blockbusters that ranged all the way from Darkman 2 to Darkman 3. And after living in hotel rooms for 14 straight months, she reconsidered her career and decided to go to the Wharton School for an MBA. After business school, she landed at the New York Times company's corporate strategy team. And that was her first taste of customer retention. And it came from a project that sent her all around the States, studying best practice at companies from FedEx to LL Bean. And that was kind of what got Ali hooked on customer retention, really boosting customer experience as a way to improve retention and revenue. And then while working in her client's lingerie business, Ali realized that there was a massive hole in the market and that expertise around customer retention was sorely needed. And that's where your iconic brand was born, to help companies develop the emotional connections and systematic processes needed to inspire customers to spend more, stay longer, and refer like crazy. She's actually written an Amazon #1 best-selling book on bra fitting called Busted, which then became Fit My Bras. The book was published in Spanish and English. And currently, in addition to helping clients improve customer retention, Ali teaches entrepreneurship at Purdue University, and her customer retention work with companies has become the basis for a brand new book, which we are going to definitely talk about today, called Keep Your Customers: How to Stop Customer Turnover, Improve Retention, and Get Lucrative Long-Term Loyalty, published this month by Morgan James Publishing. And so we were just talking about this, but Ali's client roster is quite wide. It includes retail, and then there's also financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, associations, and many more. So, Ali, welcome. How are you going?
Thanks. Yeah, great to be here. I'm doing real well. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. So we've kind of known about each other for a while, but as I said, I saw something that you posted on LinkedIn the other day, and I went, oh yeah, I've definitely got to get Ali on the show. So welcome. So you keen to get into it?
I'm here. I'm ready. Let's do this thing.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So in your opinion or in your experience, why don't businesses think more about customer retention at the start of their relationship with a new client?
So I think there's a couple of things. One is that a lot of companies are sales-driven organizations, and you hear that term a lot, right? Yep. We're a sales-driven organization. And that's great. And what it oftentimes means is that the people who are running the company came out of sales and they really appreciate getting new revenue, getting that customer. They're hunters, they're not farmers. And it's a very different mentality. And so if you glorify the selling, then that's where you're going to spend your time. That's where you're going to spend your energy. That's what you're going to celebrate in the company. And a lot of times compensation structures are built around the sale, not the retention. So that's one big thing is it's just the way that the companies are set up. And salespeople especially, are kind of naturally optimistic. They think, this is going to be great. They're going to love me. They're going to stay forever. And so the assumption is this is going to really be awesome. And so you sort of have to plan for the long term, even at the very beginning. And so there's kind of a mismatch between the mindset and the reality. So that's one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is that customer retention is inherently messier than sales. Sales is binary. You didn't have the customer, now you have the customer. You didn't have the revenue, now you have the revenue. Once the customer comes on board, there are a lot of different ways that the company, and even if you're a company of one, there's a lot of different ways that the company touches the customer. And so it becomes harder to identify okay, where's this going well and what's falling short? And in larger companies especially, it becomes a lot harder to identify who needs to change things up, and so anything that is messy and more complicated is going to be something that people don't want to pay as much attention to. Hey, let's focus over here where things are really simple and binary, and we can, ring a bell and bang a gong when that customer walks through the door. So I think those are the two main reasons why people don't focus on retention as much as they focus on that selling process.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I couldn't help but feel partly responsible for that.
Hey, you got to get them in the door. The sales process is very important. And you just have to also have a process to keep them once you've gotten them.
Yeah, that's so true. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting about what you just said was that it's what's the index? How do we know? How do we know whether we're doing a good job on customer retention or not? And I mean, you've got, obviously the percentage of customers that leave, and I guess you've got the average time that they stay as a customer. So you've got those things, which I guess I guess you call them lag indicators. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're counting them after they've walked out the door, then it's lagging for sure.
Yeah. So what are the lead indicators? And I guess, one of the things that jumps out, that comes to mind is a good lead indicator like the Net Promoter Score. What have you had to do with that idea around measurement?
So measurement is definitely the key to getting ahead of the churn. Yep. And Net Promoter Score it's a really interesting tool because it's easy to ask people that question and get the information. The real question is, what are you doing with it? Yeah. I see a lot of companies, they do a Net Promoter Score and they look at it, but they don't really do anything with the data.
Yeah.
And so data is only good if you use it. And
just for anyone, before we go too much further, just in case somebody doesn't know what a Net Promoter Score is, most people would have had the experience where they get sent like an email or something on an app or whatever that says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to refer our business or our product to your family and friends? And you get an opportunity to give them a mark out of 10 in terms of how willing you would be to do that. And then obviously the average of how many people complete that gives that business their net promoter score. So, sorry, I just thought I'd better jump in there and explain that bit.
No. Good call. And I think that there's also, it's been around for a while now, and it's kind of, I think there's two factors to it. One is, what are you doing with the data? And two is, are people getting tired of being asked that same question? Because a lot of customers get asked that question by a lot of different companies. So, are people's behaviors changing around their responses to that question?
Yeah. Are they being potentially even desensitized to it?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it now. And of course, I have a different and deeper relationship with that question. But, I sort of roll my eyes now when I get it. And I'm like, well, how am I going to play it? And because I know that the right answer is a 9 or a 10. And so am I going to give it to them?
Yeah.
And, the idea is that just to go deeper into what Net Promoter Score is and what it does, the idea is that anybody who responds with a 9 and a 10 is your net promoter. They're going to promote you out into the world. Yep. And the efficacy and whether or not people are actually doing that is not as clear. And especially if companies don't do anything with the data.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Interesting. So what then, if those are the two sort of core drivers, like, there's the, in inverted commas, sales driven culture, and the other one that you mentioned was it being a bit messy and difficult to track. What then are the three biggest foundations that that a business owner could put in place to give themselves the highest possibility of lowering customer turnover or churn, as it's sometimes referred to as?
Sure. So the first thing that you want to do as a company is make sure that you have everybody on the same page.
Yep.
And this isn't just about, you need a mission and you need a vision and you need values, because really those things are all about you. But what is a company doing to make sure that they're being consistent across all of the touch points a customer gets? Because a lot of building retention has to do with building trust. And if your company isn't building trust and isn't being authentic and does anything really to undermine the confidence that a customer has in you as a company, then you're hurting your chances for a long-term relationship and that, sweet retention that is incredibly lucrative financially.
Yeah.
And so sometimes in companies, if it's a bigger company, it's about making sure that you have everybody on the same page, no matter what department they're in. So that's one of the key things that I help people focus on is how do you create that, what I call the bullseye, and make sure that everybody in the organization really knows what that customer-oriented bullseye is and how you aim for it. But even in companies that are just one person, so that one person knows the whole organization, usually they have vendors that they work with, or they do, they use somebody to help them with their marketing or their website or whatever it is. And it's the same principle applies there. You have to make sure that everybody who is doing anything on behalf of your organization is aiming for that same bullseye.
Yeah.
In this day and age, especially, if you hire somebody, let's say you hire a marketing company to do some of your social media for you, and they tweet out something that is really just lunkheaded, right? It's off-brand, it's wrong message. Nobody sits there and says, oh man, they hired the wrong company to do their tweets.
No, that blows back on you.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really the first thing, is get everybody on the same page and aiming for the bullseye together.
Yeah.
The second thing, and the thing that a lot of companies miss, is you have to really know who your most loyal customers are. We talk about ideal customer profile all the time, and that's cool. But, like, I don't know about you, but I look at some of those ideal customer profile um, worksheets or what have you, and it's, what magazine do they read, and what's their favorite TV show, and all of that stuff can be incredibly valuable to help you paint a vivid, rich picture of the people that you are aiming for. But you need to make sure that you're painting that vivid, rich picture of the right people. And if you look at the numbers, there's some really, really interesting research that came out when I was writing Keep Your Customers. And it was looking at sales and that idea that you can apply the rule of 80-20 to sales. And the idea was that, the idea of applying the rule of 80-20 to sales is that 80% of your revenue is going to come from the top 20% of your customers. And that's been something that a lot of people have just been saying is true for a long time. And I think there's even been a book written about it. And nobody had ever done the real nitty-gritty academic level research on this. And so while I was writing the book, somebody came out with this research, and it looked at, this application of 80-20 to sales. And it turns out that, in fact, it doesn't hold up. And
Interesting.
So the top 20% of your customers, they deliver anywhere between 66 and 74% of revenue. So it's still pretty good, right? It's between 2/3 and 3/4, but it's just not 80%. But then they took the research one step further, and they started looking at it from the standpoint of net income, so profitability. And it turns out that that top 20% delivers anywhere between 105 and 113% of a company's profit.
Wow.
Right. So, and the reason that a small subset can deliver more than 100% of profit is because companies serve so many customers at a loss. So the second fundamental is you have to really know not just who your customers are, but who is at that tip of the pyramid, who are the ones that are your most loyal. And even loyalty gets broken down because there are sort of three different kinds of loyal customers. So you have a bunch of customers that either are losing you money or they're just average customers. And then you've got that top tier. And of those, some of them are just going to be what I call sort of the lazy loyals. So they're the ones that are buying from you. They're repeat customers, but they're not loyal customers. They buy from you out of convenience. Yep. So the best example of that is there's a coffee shop on the corner. You go there every day while you're working at that job. And then when you go to a different job, you never go back to that coffee shop and you don't care. Mm-hmm. Well, they weren't attracting you because of their great marketing. They weren't doing anything except for happening to be that coffee shop on the corner to get your repeat business.
Yeah, it was just about convenience.
Just about convenience, right? Lazy loyalty.
Yeah.
And then there's that next tier, and they may have some affinity for you, but they can be swayed. So they have some amount of loyalty, but it's limited. So you think about a hotel rewards program. You might stay in Hilton because you have a better level of rewards with them, and you like beefing up your rewards level with them, and so you prefer Hilton. But at the end of the day, if Starwood gives you a better deal, or their rewards program becomes better, you would switch. And so maybe you're more loyal to the rewards program than to the hotel itself, right?
Yep.
So there's a level of loyalty, but it's limited. And then there's that top tier, the lucrative loyals. And they're the ones that are really excited about what you do, and they want to hear about what's new. And they're telling all of their friends about what it is that, you do. They're the ones that are like dragging their friends over and saying, you've got to meet John. He does the most amazing sales stuff. And those are the ones that you really want to cultivate. So as you think about who you want to focus your marketing on, who do you want to design your conversation toward, you have to really know that group of lucrative loyals, because they're the ones that you want to keep, but they're also the ones that you want to attract. So the value of really knowing and having great data and information and knowledge of your loyal customers is that it then goes back and helps you with your sales and your lead gen, because you can be so much more targeted and tailored about the people that you're attracting.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it puts a whole other spin on that classic, you need to create your customer avatar, which
Right.
I love, because when you think about it, it's like if you're putting it under the spotlight like that, there really is only one type of amazing customer that you would kind of almost do anything to get. So if you can advertise and aim your message at that person, then you're so much further ahead of the game than what you are if you're just creating a customer avatar. Love that. Awesome.
And then it also helps you with your engagement with your customers, because when you're super focused on who those best customers are, the reality is that all customers aren't created equal. We talked about retention earlier, and the fact that people will look at their data, and sometimes retention isn't about keeping everybody, it's about keeping the right people. And the more you're clear on who those right people are, the better you are going to be at keeping the customers that are going to be great for your business. And so, when I work in retail, there are oftentimes, my clients will say, well, we get unreasonable customers and they want us to bend the rules for them. And that's why it's so important to know, well, is this a customer that you want to bend the rules for? Because sometimes the answer is sure, you should bend the rules. If you've got somebody who has been with you for a long time and they buy a ton of stuff and they're bringing people in all the time, absolutely let them return that item that has been, that's past the return window. Absolutely cut them some slack. But if it's somebody who's just making a bunch of noise and they're not a good customer, they may hit you on social media. You can't prevent that, but you also can't roll over every time somebody, says, "Oh, I'm going to tell everybody that, you didn't treat me well." You have to hold your boundaries as a business.
Yeah.
So again, it's knowing who you want to hold your boundaries for and when you want to make an exception, and then be clear that you're making the exception for the right people and the right reason. A lot of times what I see is that people are so afraid, businesses, especially small businesses, are so afraid of negative feedback from customers that they do anything for any customer who sort of makes that threat. Or they get negative feedback, like, I don't like the way you do such and such. And then they think, oh, I should change the way I do such and such because this random customer who's never bought from me before and may never buy from me again didn't like it. Well, no, you got to be really clear about who those great customers are so that you are aiming for them.
Yeah, or be really too rigid, and on the other end of the spectrum, and burn someone who was super loyal, who spends a truckload of money, and they've just dug their heels in on some insignificant detail and lost that person when they didn't need to for something really similar, really silly in many cases.
It's absolutely. And we've talked a lot about data, but the reality is that it is an emotional decision that people make over and over again to have a relationship with you as a business.
Yeah.
And that loyalty is tremendously emotionally driven.
Yeah.
And when people feel seen, heard, and valued, then they are much more inclined to become loyal and stay loyal. But if you do something to undermine that feeling of being seen, heard, and valued, then people feel almost embarrassed. Like, it's like going on a date with somebody and you're into it, and then they do something and you just feel like, oh, why did I even like them? Now I feel gross about it. And
I love dating analogies around business.
right, sure. So, you want people to maintain that feeling of feeling like they have a relationship with you. It really is about relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're the two extremes. It's like, becoming too flexible for everybody and making wholesale changes because of one, insignificant person's opinion where there's no pattern. We used to say that, I had a business partner for the first 7 years that I was running this business, and one of the useful conversations that we used to have was, okay, well, is there a pattern? Someone's done something that we don't like. Someone's done something, they've decided that they don't want to do something, or they've said that they don't like something or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, is there a pattern of this? Well, no, there's not. Okay, so that's got to be a decision that if there's a consistent pattern of something happening, okay, well, maybe you do need to make a change. But if it's just one person who comes and buys from you, once every 6 months opinion, then don't make wholesale changes. But then on the other spectrum, it's like, this person comes and buys from you every day or every week or even every month and spends a truckload. Why wouldn't you want to be flexible with them to keep them happy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
that's where that balance, again, that's where that balance between, you have to know your numbers, you have to know the data. It's not just the numbers, you have to know the people behind the numbers so that you can make those emotional decisions, those emotion-based decisions. It's really, again, in the book, I call it the heart and the smart. You have to have both.
Yeah, combination of both, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit, but is there a smoking gun piece of data that most business owners don't know about, that when you say to them, well, are you aware that, and then this number, this bit of market data, is there a smoking gun bit of data that when you tell most business owners about retention and the importance of it, they just go, oh, whoa, okay, yeah, I need to start paying more attention to this?
So the piece that I focus on is a combination of who are those lucrative loyals. So do you know who they are?
Yep.
And how do you figure it out? Because lucrative loyalty isn't always just a matter of dollars.
Yep.
You can have somebody who is a big revenue generator and has no connection to your company. They're just buying, they can be a convenience buyer.
Yep.
And the minute that you're inconvenient or the minute they get a better deal, they're out.
Yep.
And so you can't just look at revenue. And on the other hand, you can have somebody who is not spending that same amount of money, but they are highly engaged with what you do. And so they are the referrers. They are the ones that are bringing their friends in and generating business on your behalf. So identifying who those people are and looking beyond just the numbers.
Yeah.
That's the magic.
Gotcha. Interesting. Which is probably a bit more challenging if you don't have a bricks and mortar business, wouldn't it? I mean, if you're trying to analyze the behaviors and of people online, is that more challenging for people?
It can be. I mean, you're never going to get it 100% right, but what you want to do is put those pieces into place so that you can get better. And, it's not like flipping a switch. It's not like you don't know anything about your customers and then you know everything about your customers. You build it over time. And so even online, you can get information from your customers. You can do more and more in terms of the data side of things with, being able to track where referrals come from and, know who's tweeting about you or who's engaging with your social media. So it's art and science.
Yeah. Do you recommend surveys and that kind of thing?
The more you can talk directly to your customers, the better.
Conversations,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so surveys can be great and surveys can be annoying and pointless.
Yep.
And so, you want to just be thoughtful about it and know where it's coming from. And then again, who's responding to the survey. If you survey 100% of your customers and you look at all of the data equally, then you're not going to necessarily be able to know who are the voices that are coming from that average, or in non-loyal group versus the super loyal group.
Because just because somebody responded to an online survey doesn't mean that they're your lucrative loyals, as you pointed out.
Right. Well, and especially if you're providing, yeah, exactly. And if you're providing an incentive for people to do something like, oh, if you refer a friend, you're going to get $5. Well, that might inspire a referral, but it's not an authentic loyalty-based referral.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a the customer is self-incented to make that referral. It's not about you.
So the data that you get might not necessarily be representative.
Right.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that so much of this is balancing the qualitative with the quantitative and putting more importance on the qualitative in terms of feedback and actual authentic conversations and things like that to determine who's who, so that you can change the way that you look after those people accordingly. Would that be accurate?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And just recognizing that all customers aren't created equal.
No, that's so true. So true. So have you got a particularly indicative or good example around a client that you've worked with and what you were able to do around customer retention that you can think of?
Sure. So I worked with a brick and mortar retailer in a small town in Canada. Mm-hmm. And we started working together about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm picking this client deliberately because she's not a big company. It's a one-door brick and mortar retailer in a small town. Mm-hmm. And when we started working together, her customer information was on index cards, and she didn't have a point of sale system in the store that tied inventory to customer purchases, and she was just sort of doing everything by feel. Mm-hmm. And as she said recently, if I had asked her who her customer was back then, she would have said anybody who walks in the door. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think a lot of retailers feel that way. And so over the period of working with her, the first thing that we did was we started to identify, well, who really are her customers and what is the profile of those more lucrative loyals. And she was able to identify who they were and tweak her marketing so that she was creating campaigns that were so much clearer because they were speaking to those customers or to that customer profile. And so, of course, it attracted people who weren't going to be lucrative loyals because the messaging was just very clear and therefore it was very attractive, but it was super clear and incredibly powerful for the people who were inclined to become lucrative loyals. And it inspired because her marketing and her messaging and the things that she was doing in the store was so much more clear, and everybody in the store was on the same page. Some of the people who were maybe limited loyals upgraded and became more lucrative as a result. So within 90 days, she was tracking at 25% higher in revenue than she had been before. And in retail, especially brick and mortar retail, that's amazing.
It's massive. That's massive.
And
especially for a mature business to get another 0.25%. A quarter on top of what you're doing. That's huge.
Right. And so, and the differences that she put in place, or the things that she put in place, weren't huge. They were small steps. And it really started with identifying who those VIP clients were and reaching out to them, and then building on that with consistency. Yeah. And so it was just small steps over time. And so over time, and with something like a small brick and mortar retail store, you just never know if that's going to be a blip or if that's going to be something that builds over time. And in those 5 years, she has continued that pace and is now tracking even higher. I think the last time I talked to her, she's like 35% over where she was 5 years ago.
Wow.
And in that amount of time, not only so in fairness, I'm not counting the current coronavirus period of time. So I'm not
not really comparing apples to apples on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So up until February, she was tracking. But in those 5 years, she actually ended up becoming very sick and had to step out of her business for a chunk of time and get better. And for most brick and mortar retailers, that would be a death knell. The company wouldn't survive the owner being out of the business for a couple of months. And, if they could even keep their doors open. And because of the work that she had done, not just with her customers, but with her team, to make sure that they understood the processes, they understood the bullseye, and everybody aimed for it together. And because of all the things that she put into place, because she figured out who her customers were and then invested in that point of sales system and all of the things that she had done with our work together, the business stayed on track while she was out.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Cool.
Yeah.
And such a great example for someone who, perceivedly wouldn't have that much scale per se, just having one shop.
Right.
It shows what's possible, when you really put some focus onto something, that's for sure.
Right. And people think, customer retention and all of this stuff, it's for big companies with big marketing budgets and lots of bells and whistles to throw at things, lots of money to throw at this. And it doesn't have to be. You can create really big differences with some small shifts.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Cool. So I got the two questions that I always ask every guest, because we are on the Master Dealmaker Secrets podcast. The biggest deal that you've done.
Right. So the big, let's see. So the biggest deal that I've done is in the healthcare industry.
Uh-huh.
And it is working with a healthcare system to bring consistent communication to all of their internal teams so that everybody was communicating to customers in the same way. So this was an organization that had lots of different silos, and the way that corporate communicated was completely different from the way that healthcare professionals communicated, and even, different tiers of healthcare professionals were communicating totally differently. And So I had to go in and say that, this was that I could get everybody to aim for that bullseye together. And so that was a big deal, because it was so many different kinds of constituents that were
How many staff were we talking about in total?
tens of thousands.
Oh, whoa. That would have taken a while, right?
It took a while, but what we were able to do with a combination of technology and in person was really great.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Thousands. That would have been a bit daunting at the start, I would imagine.
It was a bit daunting at the start.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like one of those ones that you go, "Can you help?" And you go, "Yeah." And then later you're like, "Yeah."
Right. Well, the answer is always yes, right? Can you help? Yes.
Hey, can you do that? Yeah. Cool. Hey, I've taken on a couple like that.
Right. No, we'll figure it out.
Wow, that's awesome.
Great. Yeah.
And I would imagine that that made a huge difference to them in terms of the outcome.
Made a huge difference. And the biggest factor was their internal consistency. And so, that's ultimately, that's the ball game. Is it's not about the work that I do, it's about the work that you do on your end to make sure that these become living systems in the organization.
Yeah, of course. Cool. So, what about the biggest deal that you were attempting to get that you didn't get? Because the reason I ask that is that often there is as much, if not more, to learn from the deals that we didn't get as opposed to the ones that we did.
Well, so it's funny because we just talked about biting off more than you can chew. And
here it comes.
Yeah. So I approached so I live in Indianapolis, Indiana in the United States, and it's the home to one of the bigger retail mall companies and so I was thinking, I should totally be able to pitch them this great system for retailers because I've had all of this success and I could bring such great information to the people in all of their stores across all of their malls, and had a couple of really great conversations. And it was like, yes, this is going to happen. And then I walked into a conversation and they're like, so tell us exactly how you're going to scale this across all of our malls in America. And the reality was I just wasn't in a position to do it. And that was truly one of those situations where, given the geographic breadth of every place that they served, there was just no way I could do it well. And so
that is the exact opposite problem that I have when I deal with clients. I live in Perth, which is the most remote city of its size in the entire world. It's like a big, small country town. So I've never had that problem, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I had no business really landing that, if I'm being honest. I did not have the infrastructure, and that's not the kind of business that I run. It's not the kind of business that I want to run. I don't want to be, going all over and so I was sort of trying to sell them on, we're going to do virtual training, and they did not bite. So,
no. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So what was the thing that you learned from that? What was the big upshot?
The big upshot is, I think if I had been really clear from the beginning that I could do a virtual, I could give them my virtual program and do a tailored version for them and have them offer it to the people in their malls. And, if I had been more clear about who I was and been more authentic about what I do, then I think I would have gotten a clear yes or a clear no, but I wouldn't have wasted their time and mine. Yeah. And I was so enamored with this idea of being able to land them and serve the people in all of these malls that I kind of danced around what I truly bring. And a lot of that would be, the virtual training and, having that combination of virtual training and conversations and being available to answer questions and that kind of thing. And so I think that the biggest lesson is just, be who you are and don't try and be more than that.
Yeah, I love that. It's easy to drift off into something that you think that perhaps you should be rather than something that you are. I think that's such a great message.
Right. And I needed to remember the lessons that I teach, right? Those weren't going to be my lucrative loyals. And so they would have been a big fish. They would have been a big, big, big fish, but they wouldn't have been my lucrative loyal.
No, that's such a great message. Cool. So we all already know one book that we're going to talk about, which is Keep Your Customers, How to Stop Customer Turnover, Improve Retention, Get Lucrative Long-Term Loyalty. That available on all of the platforms, Amazon?
Yes, all the platforms all around the world. And I did especially check to make sure that it's available in Australia, and it is.
Oh, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. And any two others that you recommend around customer retention? Or even just in general, they don't have to be around customer retention, just business books that you find yourself giving away or recommending or?
Yes. So I really love The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Mm-hmm. It is all about the triggers that inspire habit and how do you change them successfully. And that ties directly into customer retention because so much of what the work is about changing people in the organization's habits so that they interact differently with customers.
Yep.
And so I love that one. And then I also really love, what's it called? It's Sean Achor, and it's The Happiness something. I can't believe I'm forgetting the title because I love this book. It's brilliant. And Sean Achor, SHAWNACHOR, and it is focused on positive psychology and the way that you can fundamentally change your interaction with success and your definition of success and how happiness comes first. We think that you're gonna get success and then happiness. Mm-hmm. But in reality, you find happiness and that's when you find success. And the research behind it is incredible. He's at Harvard University and just brilliant and funny. And his TED Talk is fantastic. So that's the other one.
Cool. I'll check him out for sure. Oh, that's cool. I haven't heard of either of those two books. I'm going to check them out for sure.
It helps when you know the name, but...
Well, you've got Sean Achor, so I'm sure we can find that positive psychology. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's the happiness something.
It's definitely about happiness.
I'm sure people can track that down. It's all good. Anything that I should have asked you, but I didn't?
No, I think we covered a lot of good ground here.
Definitely. And so what's the best way for people to get in touch if they want to, talk to you about getting some help with their retention or start, reading some of your stuff, or what do you reckon?
Yeah. So the company is called Your Iconic Brand. And so people can find me at youriconicbrand.com. And they can also check out more information about the book. If they want to come and get some additional information from me, they can go to keepyourcustomersbook.com.
Cool. Awesome.
And then, of course, come find me on the socials. I'm on all the majors. Actually, that's not even true. Somebody was saying to me the other day, there's like, so do you do TikTok? I'm like, no, I don't do TikTok. Like that's
my daughter does though.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm sure my kids do too, but like I work with business people.
Yeah. Well, apparently we're meant to be on there as well, but I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do customer retention dances. That's not my speed.
No. I mean, who knows if time makes hypocrites of us all.
You know what? I'll tell you what. If I start doing TikTok customer retention dances, I will personally call you and own up to it.
Classic. Awesome. Well, look, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, and I'm sure that it's going to be really, really useful for everybody who's listening. So, yeah, thanks again.
Thank you. It's been great.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker's Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies to maximize your sales process with new episodes every week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive free no-fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.